I think one of the ways in which I found myself being very influenced by Nietzsche and very influenced by Jordan Peterson, and when I say I'm influenced by Nietzsche, I'm kind of influenced through them, through Adler and through Jung and through Jordan Peterson as well. Because I can't mainline Nietzsche, man. I can't do it raw. It's too much for me. I have to get it from other people. When I'm doing it firsthand, I just get a bit depressed, to be quite honest with you. I mean, the dude was obviously really clever, but man, he is a downer. That is not a guy you'd want at a party. But he's right on so many things. And one of the things that he really focused on, that then Jordan Peterson has sort of riffed on and extrapolated, was the notion of value. Value. And really trying to get to grips with value and values and putting them into some sort of order, putting them in some sort of a hierarchy. Much in the way that we did at the beginning of the course, where we found out, we chose our core values, we put them in an order of like 1 to 5. But he wanted to do more like a meta-analysis of what we value and where value comes from. It then becomes pretty logical to move from that to talking about morality. Your morals, the superego we know from Freud, is primarily concerned with applying value in your life. So do that, it's in line with your values. Don't do that, it's not in line with your values. This is either the root cause or the neighbor of morality. Nietzsche probably wouldn't agree with that. But I'm not saying that this is authentic morality. I'm saying that our sense of where morality comes from probably comes, where it comes from a systemic machine-like functional sense, probably comes from Freud's model of the superego. There's a part of us, it's kind of like a parent or a tribal elder, that tells us, do that, don't do that. And that is like raw, primal morality, if you like. Don't go over there, the snakes will eat you. Go over there, those berries aren't poisonous, and eat them. They're good to eat. Something simple, primal like that. We live in a time where we generally don't concern ourselves with philosophy. We don't concern ourselves with morality. We don't concern ourselves with values. And we certainly don't concern ourselves with a moral philosophy. Why the hell should we? What difference does it make? Well, if you don't have... Let me say it like this. If you had a really well-defined moral philosophy, I don't know that that would make your life awesome, excellent, everything that you wanted it to be. But I will say this. If in the space where you could have a moral philosophy, you have nothing, tumbleweed, nihilism, existentialism, hedonism, just a desire, because you're bereft of meaning. As Viktor Frankl said, if you've got no meaning, you'll just pursue pleasure to fill that empty space. He was, in psychoanalytic terms, he was the drive for meaning guy. Adler was the drive for power guy. Freud was the drive for pleasure guy. So if you have nothing there, you will just seek pleasure because you've got an empty space, and it hurts to have an empty space. If it is empty, you will be impressionable, naive, you will never really grow up. You'll be like a Peter Pan, eternal boy, eternal girl, eternal adolescent. You will be extremely vulnerable to predators. You will be extremely vulnerable to your own vices and addictions and impulses. You'll be very vulnerable to political propaganda. You'll be inordinately vulnerable to marketing and brainwashing. Why? When you develop a moral philosophy, you have a filter, a series of boundaries, a matrix, a network through which reality, messaging, people can be filtered that allows you to distinguish good from bad, right from wrong. If you lack that ability and you don't have the muscle to say this is right and this is wrong, or worse, if you've been brainwashed into some sort of postmodern soup, there's like, no, nothing is right, nothing is wrong, it's all culture bound, it's all relative to where you are in time and space, and Everybody's got their own perspective, man, and it's all equally valid. I don't even know whether that's true or false. Maybe it's absolutely true. Maybe that statement as a mischaracterization of what postmodernists believe, it isn't. We can't say what postmodernists believe because there's no one group of people called postmodernists. It's just a tool. But if you're deep into postmodernism, deep into social constructionism, and you say, look, nothing is anything but that which we call into being, we made it all up. Nothing is good, nothing is bad. What happens when somebody comes along who wants you to do something that is bad for you and bad for the people around you? How would you know? If we take it to its extremes, and you've been brainwashed, so there's literally no such thing as good and bad. You were raised in a culture where nobody said good or bad. Nobody ever distinguished between good or bad. How that would ever happen, I don't know, because I don't know how you could create a life and live a life and keep shoveling food into your mouth without dying and under those circumstances. But okay, let's pretend it's a thought experiment. When somebody came along and they asked you to do something that was bad for you and bad for the people around you, why wouldn't you do it? If you're blind to morality, you're like blind to values, you're blind to good, blind to evil, why not just do evil? If you wanted people to do really bad things that hurt them and hurt the people around them, wouldn't you, in your cunning, evil schemingness, cause them to drop the filter of their moral philosophies and their value systems so that they were value blind, so that they were morality blind? I would. I'd dip them in that ideology first. I'd soak them in it. And I'd be like, nothing has any meaning. No art has any intrinsic meaning. No author ever had a thing that they wanted you to take from the book. It's all down to you and you and you and you. And it's all down to subjectivity. There's no objective truth. That's what I would steep you in. That's an ideology I would steep you in if I was leading you towards doing really bad things. So that you would lose the ability to say, hang on a second, no. Because a boundary is always no. And if you have no boundaries because you have no moral philosophy, you'll never say no. Because if I ask you to do a terrible thing, you'd be like, well, it's terrible to me, but maybe to him it's bad because he's a different person. And it's all subjective, right? There's no such thing as absolute truth. There's no such thing as absolute good, absolute evil. So let's just do anything. Why say no? Why ever say no? This is why I claim that if you actually bother to develop a moral philosophy, it will protect you. I don't think you will live an amazing life if you have a moral philosophy. In fact, I know that you won't. I don't think everything falls into place when you have a moral philosophy. I think that you dodge evil and you avoid an awful lot of hell and hellishness and infernal type torment in the Christian and the Buddhist sense of that if you have a moral philosophy, if you develop a moral philosophy. And how do we do that? We ask ourselves a series of very simple questions and we attempt and fail to answer them again and again over time. What is good? How can I recognize it? How can I do it? What is bad? How can I recognize it? Why would I do it? How should I live? How should a person live? 3 simple questions. Attempt to answer them again and again and again. And when somebody comes into you, and that muscle grows, and somebody comes into your life and they ask you to do something bad, they ask you to do something that's not good for you, they're very sexy, they're very good looking, they're very nice, and they offer sexual pleasure and the status of being with them because they're an attractive person, and they offer opportunity and wealth. But you know that they're going to hurt you, and you know that they have no good intent for you or any other human beings around you. Why would you resist the temptation to be with them? You wouldn't if you have no moral philosophy. You would take the short-term pleasure and short-term gain because you have no discipline, no will, no long-term vision, and you have instant access to gratification, instant access to status, instant access to power. What are you going to do? You're going to choose the easiest thing possible. Develop a moral philosophy and it will protect you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and for your attention, and I look forward to speaking to you again tomorrow. Cheers.